Ernest Hemingway was not a man to waste words. According to an urban legend, he once bragged that he could write a whole story in 6 words, and then did. The story? For sale. Baby shoes, never worn. That legend is probably not true, but Hemingway did write a story that won him the Pulitzer Prize, spawned 3 film adaptations, and covered themes of suffering, pride, perseverance, and isolation. And he did it all in a book that used fewer words than like 1 chapter of War and Peace. On today's episode of 5 Minute Trivia's 5 Minute Lit, we're talking about The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway.
We choose to go to the moon.
Right now, you like me.
Practice? We're talking about practice, man.
Welcome to 5 Minute Trivia, where we're making the world smarter 5 minutes at a time. I'm your host, R.M. Zubairi. The Old Man and the Sea was the last major work of fiction that Ernest Hemingway published. To say that Hemingway had a life would be an understatement. He'd been wounded in World War I, married Hadley Richardson, worked as a reporter in Paris, left Hadley for Pauline Pfeiffer, went to Spain to cover the Civil War, left Pauline for Martha Gellhorn, drove his personal boat around the Caribbean to sink U-boats during World War II, left Martha for Mary Welsh, accompanied troops to the beaches of Normandy on D-Day, attended the liberation of Paris, and was involved in 2 separate plane crashes that he barely survived before taking his life. So, just to add up the tally, that's 4 wives, 3 wars, 2 plane crashes, and 1 self-inflicted bullet to the brain. Oh, and he was also something of a writer. He won the Nobel Prize and the Pulitzer. Books like A Farewell to Arms, The Sun Also Rises, and For Whom the Bell Tolls made Hemingway a titan of literature. Hemingway's prose was like nothing that came before. It was simple and spare and tight and trusted the reader to fill in what he left unsaid. This is how the book opens.
He was an old man who fished alone in a skiff in the Gulf Stream, and he had gone 84 days now without taking a fish.
That's it. In 1 sentence, Hemingway establishes the main character, the setting, and the central conflict. To get a sense of how different that was, here's the opening sentence of another famous novel by a different author.
Among other public buildings in a certain town, which for many reasons it will be prudent to refrain from mentioning, and to which I will assign no fictitious name, there is one anciently common to most towns, great or small, to wit, a workhouse. And in this workhouse was born, on a day and date which I need not trouble myself to repeat, inasmuch as it can be of no possible consequence to the reader, in this stage of the business at all events, the item of mortality whose name is prefixed to the head of this chapter.
Yeah, that was also 1 sentence, and that was the beginning of Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. In that sentence, the only thing you learn is that Dickens was really, really good at writing really, really long sentences. The Old Man and the Sea is a simple story about an unlucky old fisherman named Santiago who hasn't caught a fish for months. Every night he dreams of lions. One desperate day he goes out, deeper into the sea than he's ever gone before, and snags the catch of a lifetime, a giant marlin. He fights this marlin for days until he finally kills it. But it's too big for his boat, so he ties it to the side. Then a shark comes and takes a giant bite out of it. More sharks come and take more bites. By the time he makes it back to shore, there's nothing left but bones. That's it. That's the story. No war, no romance, and no commentary. And unlike War and Peace, not even 1 mention of... Yeah, Napoleon. Actually, forget Napoleon. Hemingway doesn't even directly name the fisherman. You find out his name is Santiago through dialogue. And that's not the only thing. In its deceptively simple text, in the things Hemingway leaves unsaid, he's not just telling a story about a man and a fish. This is a story about quiet perseverance in the face of impossible odds, of endurance and struggle through physical and mental pain. After Santiago kills the first fish that comes for his marlin, he knows more are coming because there's blood in the water. But he lost his harpoon in the fight and he has nothing to fend off more sharks. Does he give up? No. Man is not made for defeat, he says. A man can be destroyed, but not defeated. So the sharks keep coming. He ties his knife to an oar and fights them off until it snaps. Then he clubs them as they get near. He clubs and clubs and clubs until there's nothing left of the marlin and barely much more of himself. By the time he makes it back to shore, Santiago is exhausted and injured and has nothing to show for his days at sea but a giant marlin's skeleton. He goes to sleep the same way he woke up at the start of the book, dreaming of lions, destroyed but not defeated. Hemingway doesn't say what Santiago did the next day or the day after that. He never would, but we know. We know that Santiago was back out there doing what he did. No matter how his body was broken, his spirit would never die. And that is what this book is about. It's a story of losing everything and picking up what's left to do it all over again. Whether it's victims of war or financial ruin or personal tragedy, it's the story of humanity. So tonight, we'll dream of lions and be right back next week to do it again. Thanks for joining 5 Minute Trivia's 5 Minute Lit this week. We'll see you next time.